Welcome to Side Alpha Leadership, a podcast where leaders can share their experiences and discuss what leadership means to them. I'm your host, David Polikoff. Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Side Alpha Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, David Polikoff, and on the line I have with me, again, no stranger to the show, newly promoted lieutenant and also the president of Capital Fire Training, RJ, or Robert James. He likes to be goes by his friends affectionately known as RJ. So welcome back to the show, RJ.
Oh, awesome, Dave. Thanks for having me.
So I think the last time we talked, you may have been promoted or getting ready to get promoted. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you are promoted to a lieutenant at your work now. So just want to check in a little bit, find out how's that going for you, going from the back step to the front seat. I know in your volunteer organization, you've been an officer for many years, so you're no stranger to riding the front seat, but doing it, as your job is it's a fantastic opportunity and, a well-deserved promotion. So just want to kind of hear from you how things going and any roadblocks or any positive stories or any things that you had to overcome and came out on top or whatever.
Yeah, so I think the last time we did one together, I was waiting for my phone call to get promoted. And that was supposed to happen any day then. And then shortly thereafter, I got my phone call from one of our chiefs asking me if I still wanted the promotion. And that's the thing that they do where I work at. They ask if you still want it because some people change their minds. Some people get on other lists. So they asked if you still wanted it. And my response to the chief was, absolutely, I still wanted it. I went through the entire process because I wanted the job, and I was ready for the job. So I told him I wanted it. And then couple months ago, I had my first day. Actually, in July, on a Friday, I had my last day at Station 3 on the rescue squad. And the very next day, Saturday, I was held over as a lieutenant. So I finished my last shift as a senior man. And the very next day, I started my first shift as a lieutenant.
That doesn't happen that often. So.
So actually, my first day, I didn't even work in the firehouse. I was assigned as the officer of a reggae wine festival in over 7,000 people. So I was in charge of that as the officer my first day. So managing 7,000 people at a reggae wine festival in the dead of summer, if I can get through that, then pretty much everything else is going to be pretty easy, right?
Right.
So, yeah, man. So it's been good. Currently assigned as a float boss out of the 3rd Battalion. So the way we do it is each float boss still gets a home. So I was assigned to Company 1 on the west side where I used to work as a rookie. I did my early senior manhood at Company 1 prior to switching to the south side to go to Station 3 on the squad. So I'm assigned to the west side now, but I am a float boss. So I float around the county a little bit. Every shift I go to somewhere different to pick up a tour. And then on the days that the officer at Engine 1, he's off, I pick up his shift, so I work there. So I've had it pretty good for a little while, floating around to different houses in the county, getting a chance to meet people, see people that I haven't seen in a long time, seeing different ways. My entire fire service career has been in the city, so it's been very urbanized. So working in these different companies that are outside of the city atmosphere in the suburban areas has been a little culture shock for me, but we're getting through it.
Well, it's always good to be taken out of your comfort zone. It kind of gives you that little mental test of getting away from what you normally do, and then being able to, kind of transition into whether it be a rural water supply situation or a not so urban situation. Now, you did your time on the rescue squad, so you doing a lot of time on engine companies right now?
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of time on engine companies, and it's fun. It's fun. I'm not an engine guy, but I look at engine work as the basic of the fire service. So the good thing about it is although to me the tasks are very basic, it is the basic fire truck of the fire service, and our department's very young. So the majority of the people who are coming out of academy, they're starting basic. So I had to teach people the basic skills on a basic fire truck early in their career, which that's also new for me too. For the most part, I've worked in firehouses where I had everybody around me who were senior guys. Shortly thereafter, I was the senior guy working amongst other senior guys. So when I was at Station 3 on the squad, the other senior guys around me had at least 8 years or more, where I was sitting in between there. For my early part of my career at 3, I had 8 to 10, and getting promoted, I finished off with 15 as a fireman. So, I'm a newly promoted lieutenant with 15 years on the job, but, again, now I'm an officer with 15 years on the job, riding a basic fire truck, teaching new guys coming out basic skills.
So riding the engine company, I got to ask, you haven't broken out in a rash or anything like that, have you? You've been able to maintain not getting the itches from having to ride the front seat of a fire engine?
So let me be clear on this, Dave. I'll tell you, as my friend, just as I've told everybody else, because that's the funny thing. Everybody likes to say, "Hey, man, how's it feel to not be riding the rescue squad? What's it like? What's it like?" And I have to remind people that prior to riding the rescue squad, I am a fireman. So I am a fireman first. So it doesn't matter what I ride. I just need a transportation piece to a fire. That's it.
That's right.
I will go on a rescue squad. I'll take a truck. I'll take an engine. Dave, I'll take your car if we're going to fire. I don't
care. That's exactly right. It's I know that the special service world is where you've really started to cut your teeth. But we all started on an engine company, and getting back to that bread and butter engine company work, like you said, you could throw all the trucks in the world that you want at a fire. It's not going to go out unless you get a hose line in place and get the fire darkened down, so the rest of the crews can go in and do their job. So the fundamentals of the engine company is of the utmost importance. And like you said, it's taking you back out of your comfort zone. Yeah, you know how to do it, but you haven't done it in a while, so you're getting into a different mindset. And again, being taken out of your comfort zone is a good thing because it just builds you up stronger. So we'll transition a little bit. Like you said, you're on an engine company now, or a lot of the times when you're floating through your battalion, and you've got a lot of new firefighters that come in now. I know you're no stranger to the teaching realm. You teach at the training academy, so a lot of these recruits that are coming out, you've probably seen in the training academy. How's that worked out for you to be able to apply the training world or the training environment into the station and being that float officer? Yeah, you're not the officer that's normally there, but how are you transitioning into a leadership role and earning that leadership credibility? Bringing in some of the training or bringing in some of the knowledge that you've gained from the rescue squad in your 15 years on the job?
So the transition is it's been pretty smooth. I think, in my honest opinion, the people are just as scared as me as I'm scared of them, especially bouncing around to the new firehouses. I think around the first couple weeks of getting my bearings and understanding the flow of our department, and then realizing there's a different flow of each firehouse, I was able to grasp a concept of my own pretty quickly. One of the things that I honestly must say that I like being able to float around to the different stations is being able to see a lot of people that I haven't seen since recruit school. So I teach a lot at the academy, and that's my time to meet people. However, in our academy, it's very regimented, right? Very military style. So everybody looks the same, everybody talks the same, everybody dresses the same. When you get out in the street, it's a little more relaxed, right? I get a little more opportunity for them to not be so prim and proper, but to be just regular people and get to know them a little bit closer. That's the one thing I do like about being able to float around a little bit to the different companies. But as it relates to training, Dave, one of the coolest things is I get to see the different areas of training that people are working on, right? So I'm no expert in anything, really, but I have my things that I'm passionate about. So I get to learn a lot of different things from other people, things that I may not have practiced on myself in a long time, or something I may have not done ever, right? So I work at some of these stations that are in the suburban area, and these guys want to go out and do a rural water supply drill. I have no expertise in this, and this is where I learned something from these guys who do this on a consistent basis. And then just as much as I'm learning from these guys, they're learning from me as well, right? So when I go to these places and they say, "Hey, RJ, that's pretty cool you're here today. Can you take us out and show us some enforcement entry stuff in our community and our first due?" That's right up my alley, right? So now I can show them some things that I know, show them some things that I feel like they could benefit from, and everybody's mixing and mingling the training ideas. One of the hardest things, one of the roadblocks I come across in my travels is when we get to a place, or I'm sorry, when I get to a place and there is no plan, right? So when I get to a place and they say, "Hey, we're going to do X, Y, Z today," that's great. If I get to a place and they say, "Hey, RJ, can you do X, Y, Z with us today?" That's great. When I get to a place and they say, "Hey, man, we don't have anything," well, then that's where I hit a roadblock, right? Because I don't want to be that guy who's coming in and imposing on what they should know, especially when I'm only there for 24 hours. And at 0600 in the morning, I'm packing up and I'm rolling out. So one of my hardest roadblocks I've had to deal with is encouraging people to train on a topic or coming up with a topic to discuss. One of the things that I started implementing in my morning routine during lineup is I have a little dry erase sheet that I go down. I fill in the roster for the day, because obviously it changes, and some of these guys, I don't remember their names or whatever. So I put their names in the blocks of who's riding what and give them their riding assignments. And then I got this little checklist that I go down. So most importantly, what are we doing for meals? Because that's an important thing that I need to make sure we're all on the same page about.
That's right.
And and what are we doing for training, right? So I usually talk to the senior man or the technician that's on the shift and say, "Hey, man, look, I don't care what we do. We just need to do something. I personally like to feel accomplished for the day." And we talked about this in the last podcast we did together, Dave.
We did.
You know, I'm a firm believer, and I stick to it. I don't believe in throwing so much at people in one day, right? If you're throwing so much at somebody, how much are they really retaining of the information, right? So I like to go to that technician, that senior guy, and say, "Hey, man, I don't care what we train on, but we need to do something. Preferably in the hot summer months. If you want to do something that requires a lot of physical activity, let's do it in the morning. The cooler months, or, hey, it's not going to be so hot today. I don't care if we do it in the morning or afternoon. I want to do something, and tell me what it is we're doing, so that I know we can stick to it, and I can say, all right, let's get it done." So those have been my goods and my bads. I wouldn't even really necessarily call it bad as much as I would call it different. But those have been my new things that I've been dealing with as a newly promoted boss.
We did talk about, not trying to overwhelm, walking into, a situation where you're going to potentially overwhelm a shift with, running to do, 14 drills in one day. And I do remember you talking about, you want to walk away knowing that you accomplished at least one thing correct. I know a lot of people, when you come in and it's like, "Oh man, we got to do some training today." I think when you make it a little challenging, make it fun, and let the guys know up front, "Hey, let's get this accomplished. When this is done, the rest of the day is ours." I think that people try to, or they will give you the best, of that hour or 2 hour drill, knowing that you're not going to be hounding them all day long to be doing training after training after training, because it does get a little stale after a while. How has it been for you to go into a station, and you may have people that truly just would rather sit around the couch or whatever, and to get that buy-in? I guess that's the biggest thing is, hey, we want to get one thing accomplished. Do you find it easier to go to the senior man, and do you come up with the drill, or do you try to maybe do a little bit of reverse role, saying, "Hey, you guys come up with something, show me something. I'm out of my element because we're working in a rural situation, so bring me something, show me something." Has any of that worked for you, or is that a technique that you've used?
So I got to be honest with you, Dave, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like a cocky motherfucker, right?
Right.
But one of the biggest things I can honestly say I've never had to deal with, and we don't really deal with it much in our department. And if we do, I've never experienced it yet. Is I haven't had anybody who doesn't want to drill. Like I told you last time, our department's 65% of our department, if not more now. We got 2 classes in right now. 65% of our department has less than 5 years on the job, which means we're a young department. We just started our first recruit class. Our first and second recruit class that has guys and girls that are 18, as low as 18 years old now. Where before we was always 21.
Mm-hmm.
So we're bringing on younger people who want to do things. To be honest with you, David, it's really cool to be able to go to a place and everybody wants to do something versus having to pull teeth to do something. I can tell you that it was like that before in our department, and a lot of people who had that mentality have retired or they're gone or whatever, but we don't really have that as a big problem in our department. We have a lot of young people who want to consistently do something. So again, man, I don't impose, right? I go in there and all I ask is these couple things, and all I ask is you tell me what we're doing. And as long as there's a plan, I'm cool with it, man. I just don't want to go into the day with no plan, and they have high expectations of me. I have high expectations of them, and then everybody gets let down, right? So I can't say that I've experienced that, but I have been to a couple houses where, hey, we're going to go out and do a drafting drill. Cool, that's right up my alley because I've never experienced this before. I worked in the city for the longest. So, yeah, I'm all about learning something. When these guys pick my brain, right, it's good for me because, one, it's helping me remember some of the things that I may have forgotten. But, even these rural areas, Dave, they have some of the same forcible entry challenges as the urban areas. The biggest problem, and we teach this class all the time, when we go out and talk about different locks and different kind of added security features and that kind of stuff. But we always tell people that just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, one of the biggest things is I like to get on the rig, even in these rural areas, and we go out and we go find them. We go out and find them and go let these guys put eyes on it so that they can see it. And right then and there, we'll talk about the different tactics for how we can defeat these things and go around them or through them,
I'm jotting down a couple of notes, but I think it's fantastic, and it's a credit to your department. A lot of people will look at a department and go, "Oh my gosh, they're so young," and blah blah blah. But sometimes it's refreshing having that youth because they have that energy and they come out of the training academy and they actually get to kind of break the shackles of the paramilitary where we all look the same, we're all walking the same, we're all eating lunch at the same time type of deal, and get a slightly more relaxed feeling in the station, but they have that energy where they want to go out and do stuff. So that's really good that you never feel like you have to pull teeth to get somebody to go and train. Because they're eager to train. And you're right, it doesn't matter what your setting is. You could run 50 calls a year, or you could run 50,000 calls a year. It only takes one call where you run across something that's going to be a roadblock for you, whether it be a challenging forcible entry issue or a difficult stretch or whatever. It can happen anywhere. So the fact that your people have that mindset that they want to be able to overcome any situation, regardless of the setting of the department that they're in, is a testament to your department. I know that I know that your chief and a lot of the upper management officers, people that I know, fairly young, and when I say fairly young, they're my age or a little younger. They came from the same stock of hardcore firefighters that would pull a line, go down a hallway. They've been there, they've done that. They've never just ridden a desk. So it's a testament to your department that even though it's young, that's not an issue. One of the things that I can't stand, and I hear it in my volunteer organization, is it's like, oh, such and such county, yeah, they're 15 or 20 years behind this particular place or that particular place, and I always come back with the argument. It's like, no, that's not true, because when the tones go off, we're responding in modern apparatus with modern turnout gear, modern SCBA, modern hose lines, modern nozzles, ladders, whatever it is. We're rolling up to the same fire that can hurt or kill, just like they do in the city departments. And we're pulling lines, and we're applying water, or we're doing the same tactics that they're doing in other jurisdictions. So I find it a cop out when people say, "Oh, yeah, we're so many years behind this particular company or whatever." I don't really buy into that mentality. I think that the department you're in is just as modern as any other department if you're using modern equipment and you're using modern training that everybody else is getting across the board, if it's set the standards in the NFPA. So I kind of view that as a cop-out. Now I want to shift gears a little bit. When you were coming up as an officer, did you have a mentor, or did they have an officer candidate program for you? And what was that like going through, and what did you get out of it?
Sorry, Dave. I was actually answering you, and I realized I forgot I was on mute. Yeah, so our department has what they call OCS, Officer Candidate School. So to be honest with you, this was the first year in all of our department's years of doing this, which was, I guess you could say, my class that went through it. This was the first year we had to do one virtual. So because we were still in COVID, the program was modified quite substantially because it was virtual. So it was very challenging to do school virtual, and I can see what these kids are complaining about now, especially if you're somebody like me who has ADD and sitting in front of a computer for a long period of time, listening to somebody talk can be challenging. So yeah, we do have these programs. Mentorship-wise, I kind of clung to my two bosses that I worked at Station 3, and I got a lot of help from them as it pertained to being a leader in the company. So this is one thing I always tell people, and take it for what it's worth. In your career, every boss that you have is a mentor, right? Whether they're good or bad, they're a mentor. They're teaching you something. Even the bad ones, whether you like them or not, are still teaching you something. I've had a couple bad ones. And believe it or not, those bad ones that I've had would never know that I thought they were bad ones, to be honest with you. Because I still walked away learning something from them, right? When you meet somebody and you learn their ways and you learn how they lead or their lack of, you put it in your mental bank to say, you know what? I want to be like this person. I want to do these things with my own spin. Or you say, you know what? When I ever get to this point where I'm in charge, I will never do this like this. So either way, good or bad, you're learning something. When I worked at Station 3, I had on my shift 2 good bosses, one a captain, one a lieutenant, who I consistently learned stuff from. My captain is a really, really good engine officer, a really good engine boss. He's a really good people person, and he's just an all-out good dude. My lieutenant on the rescue squad, he's a quiet kind of guy, but he's very powerful in his tactics, but just quietly. You just don't know it. So I take a little bit of these things from both of these guys as I worked with them for years and learn these things to put them together, plus my own spin to make what I feel is like a powerful person. When you take these two powers, and I was actually blessed to have two bosses in the house. Some of these companies, they have one boss to 4 or 5 firemen or whatever. But because we have dual services in the company, we have an engine and a rescue squad. I had two bosses. So being able to learn stuff from these bosses are kind of like me having a mentor, only because, like I said, we didn't have a big mentorship program because of COVID. Does that make sense?
It does. It was, COVID kind of changed the way we did a lot of things. And like you said, I'm watching my kids on the computer going through school. They adapted. Being kids, they can easily adapt. Being adult learners, it's a little difficult when you break us out of our norms. So I know in my county we started a mentor program where we would actually take lieutenants or lieutenants. There were firefighters that were on the lieutenants list, and we would park them at a station with a senior captain, and they would ride that particular piece of apparatus with the captain riding behind them, and they get a lot of reps under their belts of running calls, doing reports, giving on scene reports, using the mobile data computer in the apparatus, leading people. Getting your tactics together and communicating that stuff. So it's a fairly new program, but coming out of the gate, it's something that we need. I know that other organizations have something similar to that. We've had organizations come over and take a look at our particular program. What about let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk a little bit about in the volunteer arena, and I think that you're equally as certified to talk into that, being a lifelong volunteer as well. You've been a volunteer since you were at least 14 years old. You came through my county as a volunteer before you got hired. You still do actively volunteer in my county. How has it been to be a leader in your organization and to try to mentor some of the newer people that are coming in that are volunteers? And there are challenges with volunteers. You're only going to catch them maybe once a week, as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 times a week when you're on a shift at your career department. How have you found any challenges with that? And on top of that, volunteers could come in. They could be quite older than you, volunteering for the first time. So actually taking cues and I'd say, for lack of better words, orders from somebody who's quite younger. Have you faced any challenges with that? How have you overcome that? And how did you build a fairly decent duty crew?
So I think I got your question, and if I get off track, just steer me back. But I look at it kind of like the other way around, actually. So I feel like me starting my career as a volunteer, me living in a firehouse at 18 years old, me doing all fire things related at a young age, prepped me for this job where I work at. I think that me having to be in a role as an officer in a volunteer system at a young age, having to manage 15 to 20 people. We got over 160 active volunteers that consistently come in 1 day a week, every week for 7 days a week. So me being at a young age, having to maintain crew integrity in the firehouse and on the street at 19, 20 years old, and me being able to have to lead training drills, have to write memos, have to discipline people. I feel like that all prepared me for my job, getting the job, maintaining the job, and most importantly, going through a promotional process. So I kind of look at it like the other way around. Like it kind of that world prepared me for the world that I work in. So over the years, growing up in that system, it was a learning experience as well, right? I learned from other senior guys that were in the volunteer system. Again, the good ones and the bad ones, right? So what can I take from these people to build what I feel the ultimate shift? At a point now where I hate when I kind of try to highlight a talking point. I feel like I'm just being a cocky ass dude. I'm really not.
Right.
But over the course of me managing one duty night, so I took over, the Tuesday night shift at 20 years old. I've been the shift officer of Tuesday night shift since I was 20 years old. I'm now 36. So I've run that shift. I've seen people come, seen them go, but very little actually go. Over the course of that time, Dave, I've had 15. I've had 15 people leave the volunteer world to go become career firemen somewhere. So although I lost good people, I helped people build their own lives, their own career. So obviously, we must be doing something right as a volunteer organization when it comes to training, right? I apply the same principles that I know, and to me, fire department world is just my life. So I just apply these same principles everywhere I go, right? When I walk into the volley house, hey, what are we doing for dinner? What are we training on? And what's the plan? You know what I mean? So I think people all the way around, it doesn't matter whether you're a volunteer, whether you're a career, I think people all around, Dave, want to come in the firehouse and they want to do something. If they don't, then they're not going to want to stay with where you're at. They're going to go somewhere else. And like I said, Dave, I haven't had anybody leave to go somewhere else other than they got hired somewhere in another department or had to move or whatever. So I think the principles that I'm using are working. It doesn't matter that the system's career volunteers, the principles that I have, right? And I think just as much as it's my principles, I think people know what I stand for, right? People know that me, you, Sam, Aaron, Cameron, all these guys, Kevin, Ader, all these guys that we travel with, we stand by one core value, which is being able to receive and share knowledge. Just as much as we teach people, we receive things from people and we learn from other places we go. But I think people know what we stand for in the fire service. So when I go places, whether it be a place to teach at, a firehouse, whether it's in the volley house or whether it's the career department, people know what I stand for. And people know that, hey, man, RJ's here today. We're going to probably do some kind of training. And I think that that comes from you building a name for yourself early in your career. I can tell you, Dave, that I have been to some places where I thought that, you know what, these guys, they don't want nothing out of me today. And you get there and, hey, man, can we do this? Can we do that? So I think when your values are good, when your principles are good, you don't have much of a fight that you have to fight to get people to do stuff. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and it's going to kind of curve into this next one. You know, being a volunteer before your career, did that help you? And for those that don't know, RJ and I both work in combination systems. RJ volunteers in a combination system. What that means is that it's a combination of career and volunteer. When you started off as a volunteer in my county, obviously you're working with the career people, and the career people working with the volunteers, and there's ups and downs. Did that prepare you for when you went into the county that you're in now, which is a combination system with volunteers as well? And were you able to speak the language to the volunteer organizations so they kind of understand where you're coming from? Because far too many times you hear this us versus them, or you know, the red line in the sand, and you can't come across here, and these are our fire engines. Did you find it easy if you ran up against some of that stuff? Did you break those barriers down? And if you did, how did you, and how's it going?
So I would say that being in the volunteer world at a busy place. So where I volunteer at, right? And consider this: the numbers have actually gone down. They've opened up more firehouses around us. But we're averaging anywhere between 10 to 17,000 calls a year for the house, for the whole firehouse. So when you live in a firehouse, you're easily clearing 1,500, 2,000 calls a year, just living there. So you get that experience, and you run the calls, and you learn the way, you meet the people. I think that as I've gone through my service in the volunteer world, you look at it as when you start running calls with these different companies, people might have a negative outlook of you because you're a volunteer, you wear a different color stripe on your coat than they do. But when you show them what you know, when you show them how you can do the job and you know the job, people change their mind about you pretty quick. And honestly, I can't really say that I've had it bad, like having this us versus them thing. At my volley house, it's a combination house. We have 3 different shifts of career guys, and like mostly everybody gets along. And honestly, if they didn't, man, they won't tell you about it. But if you can come in and still feel like you're in a good, safe place, everybody's learning, everybody's training and having a good time, having fun, well then that's really all you want. So I can't really say I've had it bad with that us versus them stuff. And honestly, David, if it was never, you know, that noticeable. I mean, you think about when you worked there, you were a career guy. I'm a volunteer. And we're best friends now.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And not, it's not to say that when I was there I didn't have my bumps. I did. Just like the volunteers probably had some bumps with me, but I think through some mutual respect, building relationships and things like that, I think things got smoothed out. And I want to say I was fortunate enough to experience some bumps in the road, and then how I handled that. And I think I walked away with, even though I had bumps with particular volunteers in that company, I can still talk to those guys as we're friends. It's like, this is what happened. We were younger then. Everything's good. We have a mutual respect for each other. So there's none of that lingering animosity or anything that you hear about in some other organizations. When I first started in the county, you would hear horror stories between the career and the volunteer where, they wouldn't even be in the same room with each other. And I'd like to think, from what I have seen, it has done a 180 in my opinion. I enjoy running calls, and I'm fortunate enough that in my particular battalion, and in the same battalion that Sam runs into, we get a lot of volunteers that are coming, and you know them on the radio. You know what their capabilities are. They're going to be there to help you in a positive way. It has never, I'd say in the last 12 or 13 years, I have never felt like, oh my gosh, this guy's coming, it's going to be a mess. It's always been, we are on the same page together, and we're in the car, and we're accomplishing the same tasks. And a lot of these guys are my good friends. I talk to them a lot offline. I think that when it comes to a combination system, I think it's vital that with the career and the volunteers, the bridge is going to be to build relationships with each other, find out where each other's coming from, what makes them tick, what makes them mad. A lot of times it comes down to, and you know this as well as I do, it's miscommunication. You're not communicating the way you should be communicating, but when the day is over and you peel back all the layers, we're firemen. And when something's on fire, we want to be there. And it, like you said, it doesn't matter how, I'll ride in the back of the ambulance if I can get there. And I think that we all have that like mentality. So, I'm glad that you're not, bumping up to any of these roadblocks but in a combination system. You do still hear these stories, and it always, the first thing I always think about when I hear these stories about these career volunteer animosities is like, okay, the person that's telling me this story, what are you doing wrong? That's the first thing I think of, because obviously your ego right now is telling me that you're right and that person's wrong. So I'm automatically assuming you're probably wrong. Or you were scorned.
Or their credibility.
Right. You were scorned by somebody many years ago, and you're still carrying that baggage. You need to let that go. And I think we would find that, if you have somebody that's not so strong, your job in the fire service, whether you're an officer or not, is to bring them up to your level. Help them. That's what we do, because when you go through the front door and it's heavy smoke, you don't know if that's a career or volunteer next to you, but the person next to you, you damn sure want to make sure that they're the guy that can pull you out if you need to, and vice versa.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't know, Dave, I think when you were talking about that one person who has got that negative notion or whatever, I think, like I said, credibility, right? What's this person's credibility? Anytime I hear somebody talk bad about somebody, the first thing I play out in my head is, what's that person's credibility? I can tell you, now switching back to my different role, right, where I work at, I can tell you that I have heard in my travels lots of bad things about some people. And when you actually meet these people and you realize, wow, this person ain't nearly what that person said. This person is actually a pretty good person. This person's pretty knowledgeable, very, very, very knowledgeable about the job. And you go back and think about it, what was the person's credibility who said that stuff? And quite to the contrary, Dave, I found that there are people that I thought were really, really good, and people that, get spoken really high of, and you realize they really ain't all that. So you always got to play it out case by case, person by person, and the credibility of the source, right? Because, man, that's one of the biggest things we fight in the fire service, right? Is this person talking bad about this person talking about bad about that person, which literally that's what we call like a high school hallway, you know? So, like, we as leaders, we as officers, it's our job to break that down immediately. One of the best things that I loved about our former chief, Scott Emmons, God rest his soul, but Scott was very, very good about when he heard something, whoever was talking about that person, breaking that person down immediately in front of everybody by saying, "But hold on a second. What kind of credibility does that person have before you start talking bad about somebody else?" Right? So if we had more leaders, Dave, if we had more people, more officers who weren't afraid to do that, right? Think about what these services, these places, these firehouses could be, right? And again, like, you don't have to like everybody. There's guys that I've worked with in my career when 0600 comes and we're off the clock, I wouldn't have a beer with these guys. But there are some guys that, you know, while we're those same guys, while we're there, our best foot forward is for the organization, for the company, and for each other, because that's what we signed up to do, you know? But at the end of the day, like, somebody's got to be that person to chop that person off and say, "Look, man, before you talk bad about this person, like, have you looked at yourself in the mirror? Like, how organized are you? How good do you think you really are?" You know what I'm saying?
I think you're absolutely right, and you know, one of the things that I jotted down is, you know, as a battalion chief, I am not going to trash somebody in front of other people. You know, I think that is something that you immediately lose your leadership credibility. You know, you may think you are one of the guys while you're doing it, but a lot of people are going to be kind of thinking, you know, this is a battalion chief and this is how he's talking about somebody behind their back. You know, wonder what he thinks about me. One of the things that I have strived myself to, or what I've tried to do as I've moved forward in the ranks is try to figure out somebody for yourself. Never let anybody say, "Oh, that guy, he's a piece of crap." You know, that guy, he would never go into a burning building. Okay, that's what you say. But you know what? Let me figure that out. Let me meet that guy or that gal. Let me see let them prove to me that that's what they are. And I would say 9 times out of 10, that person's not like that at all. Like you said, you know, you go to meet that person, it's like, this guy's a pretty decent guy. He's pretty knowledgeable. He enjoys the fire service. I think that you need to judge that person. I remember when these recruits would be leaving the training academy and they'd get their station assignments, and I would get phone calls from some of the officers. "Hey, man, tell me about recruit so-and-so. You know, what were they a piece of shit?" And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what I think about them at all, because what I think is irrelevant. I had them for 6 months. You have them for the next year. You'll have plenty of time to figure out who they are. And at the end of that time, if they're terrible, it's your fault. You know, you were the one that was supposed to mold them, but what I think about them is irrelevant. I'm giving that guy a clean slate to go to that firehouse and prove himself one way or the other. I think you're doing the fire service a disservice when you discredit somebody to somebody else before that person ever had a chance to really make an honest opinion. And like you said, RJ, that's one of the banes of the fire service, is that, you know, we talk behind everybody's back, we trash each other. And you just end up with these animosities and everything. I remember when the watch desk was out, and I'm sure you do as well. I mean, that thing was just a breeding ground of people just bashing each other. And I'm glad they shut that particular site down. But if I have a problem with somebody, you know, I would rather talk to them, you know, face to face, find out what the deal is, and how can I help them to make them, you know, feel a little bit more comfortable. It goes back to mentoring them a little bit, you know, as if, you know, they may not be meeting the bar, so how can you help them meet the bar? And I think one thing I learned from somebody, and I can't remember exactly who told me, but it was really good advice, is that you have to remember that you're going to come across people in your career that aren't as passionate and 100% both feet into the job, living and breathing it on and off duty as you are. They're there.
That's a Nick Papa. Nick, I remember.
Yep,
Nick,
you're
Nick
absolutely
had
right.
that conversation one time.
Yep, Nick
That
said
is
that.
a Nick thing, and Nick actually put me on to believe in that and remembering that. Yep,
It's
100%.
it's true. You cannot judge somebody just because they're not as much into the job as you are. Take a look at what that person does when they're on the job. Are they hitting the benchmarks? Are they a go getter? Are they fighting fire? And then when they get off work, they go home and they be with their family, and they're not listening to their scanner apps, and they're not snapping pictures of fires, and they're not volunteering in their organization. They're doing their job, but they're doing their job well. That's okay. And you're right. Nick Papa did say that. Matter of fact, I think he said that on my show probably 2 months ago. So that's old age coming in. But that's 100% true. So you can't judge that person like, oh, that person's, I don't like him. He's not into the job. He's not gung ho like I am. Well, you know what? I don't want people to be like me. I want them to be good at their job, and I want them to be able to go home in the way that they showed up, and I want them to be able to do their job, protect their brothers, and sage advice.
You know, you brought up the whole training academy thing, and I want to touch on that for a little bit because the one thing that you brought up was the clean slate. And, you know, Dave, I am a firm believer in that. And the reason why I'm a firm believer in that is because I am completely different myself, just me. I'm not talking about anybody else. I am completely different than how our fire academies are run in the fire service, right? Our fire academies, if you look at it in the American Fire Service, we use that to break people down, build them back up, but we're teaching them to be robots, right? Whereas we want them to talk a certain way, we want them to look a certain way, we want them to dress a certain way. When we first started this conversation on this podcast, one of the things I told you was I like bouncing around to these different firehouses because they're not robots no more. They're now individuals who have graduated from the academy, right? So one of the biggest things I like to think about is, yeah, man, like somebody may have not been the shining star in the academy, but they might be able to turn around to be a shining star on the street. But if we don't give them that benefit of the doubt up front, because we've already labeled them before they left the academy grounds, before they touch the street, that person has to work 2-3 times harder to break a bad name for themselves than anybody else. And they're already at a disadvantage before day one they step in the firehouse. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So I think that what you said about the clean slate, that's legit, man. And I would empower anybody who works at a training academy. I teach at the training academy. Anybody who's listening who teaches at a training academy to remember that. Like, hey, man, like this person may have not been a shining star. Because let me tell you, Dave, when I was in academy, I was not the class valedictorian, whatever you call it.
You surely were not.
Right? I wasn't the top guy. Right? I wasn't the runner who was leading the group. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't me. Like I was the average guy who was there to learn the job and to be able to comprehend, process, and take the material and enhance it to be better. There are lots of people like that. You know what I mean? And honestly, just because they don't meet our persona of how we should be at the academy doesn't mean they're bad people. They're just different, you know? Yeah. So I totally agree with you with, you know, letting people have a clean slate when they part ways with the academy to go to the street. And I remind people to remember that, you know, you put a name on somebody, they got to work harder to break that name that you made for them that really didn't exist to begin with.
And it's not fair to put that on somebody. And also, what does that mean for your leadership credibility when you're, as an officer at the training academy, talking to another officer saying that this particular rookie was a piece of crap, you didn't like him? So that's the notion that they're going to get out of that guy. And like you said, you're going to have to work twice as hard. And you know what? I remember when you were in the training academy, you know, coming through as a volunteer, and you went in, you did your job. You know, here, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pull hose-ons. We're going to go from A to B, and you did that. You know, I wasn't looking for the valedictorian. I was looking for people that wanted to do their job. And then you took that knowledge, you went back to the station, and you honed your skill, and you got better and better. And that's what it's all about. One of the things that I want to finish up on here is we talked about, just because that person's not as invested and gung ho for the job as you are. I think it's way important as an officer to always show enthusiasm when you're at work. Show them that you love being at work. Show them that you love the job. Show them that whatever station you're detailed, that's the station to be at today. We are it. We are the center of the universe at this station today. And I believe that your enthusiasm is infectious, and that'll radiate out towards people. And then a month later you might get detailed back into that station. Be, oh man, RJ's back. Hey man, what are we going to do today? And you'll kind of see a little bit of pep in their step, because they know that the guy that's coming to the station is not a complainer. He's not a whiner. He wants to do stuff. He has faith in the guys that are there that are going to get the job done. He's just always smiling. He's ready to do the job, and he lays out what's important. Hey, breakfast and lunch and dinner, that's important to me. We got to make sure that we get that no matter what time it is. And in between, we're going to have a good time running calls, and we're going to crack jokes and have some kitchen table talks. I think that type of attitude, and we're only asking you to bring that when you're on shift work, for 24 hours. And then for 2 days, you can be an asshole at your house. But when you come to work, be that guy that's enthusiastic for the job. And I think you'll find that that's infectious. And people will want to work for you. They'll want to do stuff for you. They'll actually kind of get a little pep in their step for the shift. Have you seen that? Because I know that you're enthusiastic when you go to the job.
Hell yeah, man. When I worked at Rescue 3, we used to have a saying called "Down for the Boys." And down for the boys meant, hey, man, whatever these guys are doing, you're down. Down for the boys. I can't take credit for that. The young guys that I was assigned with, they came up with that on their own. That was their thing. Here's an example for down for the boys, right? Hey, man, we're gonna take a spike of this extremely hot sauce. All you got to do is put a dab on your tongue. If you got one person that says, hey, man, I'm not doing that, they would hit you with, oh, so you're not down for the boys, right? So down for the boys was one of these concepts that I adapted working with these young guys, down for the boys, to my new role as a leader, as an officer. When I go to these different companies days, I am down for the boys. I'm down with them. I don't know if you saw, but I don't know if I sent you a picture of it, but my helmet shield. I had my helmet shield made that it didn't have a number on it.
Yeah, so you can put that dry erase marker on it.
Yeah, it was made with patent leather, so I could write with a dry erase marker where I'm working for the tour, right? Because the way I believe it, man, when I walk in the station, station 28, right, which is a fairly slow firehouse that we have in the county in the suburban area, right? I'm part of Station 8 for the day. So while I'm at Station 8, it may not be the busiest firehouse, but it's going to be a fun firehouse for 24 hours. We're going to have fun. We're going to do the job. Hopefully get to do something cool with the job. And at the end of the day, guess what? When I leave, and I race the 28 off my helmet to the next spot, and I bring the same mission to the next spot. You know what I mean? So I kind of look at it as these young guys taught me that, no matter where I go, Dave, I'm down for the boys. I'm down for them. I'm down to do what these guys want to do. Let's have fun. Let's get some training in. Let's eat a good, delicious meal, and just enjoy the job. We got 24 hours. Let's make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know, I would tell when I was teaching quite a bit for our recruits in our academy, I would get them for about an hour and a half towards the end of their shift, and I would kind of run through some of the things that they're going to find when they get out into the station life. And, but it was like 20 or 30 different bullet points of things. And I always ended it with, this job is the best job in the world. You're not going to make $1 million. You didn't come here to make a fortune. You're here doing the best job in the world, hands down. And I kind of frame that with, if you don't believe me, go ask the dude that's putting a roof on somebody's house in August. Go ask the dude that's laying asphalt down in the middle of the highway in July. Ask them about, when do they get to eat lunch? Do they get to go into an air-conditioned room to eat lunch? When do they get to go to sleep? Do they get to sleep while they're getting paid? When do those guys get to, get clean, be clean after you get a little sweaty? So making sure that those guys understand that you have entered into, hands down, the best career that you could ever hope for. Is it dangerous? Yep. It's just as dangerous as any job. We have that inherent risk, but we assume that risk and we embrace the job that for 24 hours I'm hanging out with my family. This is my second family, and I couldn't think of anything else that I always rack my brain. I was like, if I wasn't in the fire service, what would I be doing right now? I'd probably be dead.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then, when you think about it, man, like, I know I said this before on your podcast before. I hate to say it again, but I think it holds some true value to it, right? When you're doing these things, when you're having fun like this, 24 hours goes pretty fast. And you don't realize, like, man, like, we pretty much, this day is already shot. Like, and there's some things I didn't even get done that I wanted to get done. So now I got to move it into my next tour. You know what I mean? And that just keeps making the days go by and makes the time pass. And that's how, next thing you know, you're 10 years in, 15 years in, 20 years in, your time flew past you. You know what I mean?
It does. The career definitely moves fast. I can tell you that firsthand. But I wouldn't have traded anything that I've ever done, for the world. And I've been fortunate in my career that I've worked with some fantastic officers, and I've taken bits and pieces of the things that they taught me, and molded that for myself. And I think that shaped who I am. I do my best every shift to be a decent leader for my guys. Give them what they need, protect them when they need to be protected, shield them from things that they need to be shielded from, and their payment to me is when I pull up on the scene and I'm looking through my windshield and watching these guys go to work with minimal direction and performing their tasks like clockwork. That's payment to me. I mean, they make me look really good without me having to do anything. And believe me, when I know they're doing a good job, I will be out on the highest branch trumpeting, what a great job that particular shift is doing. I have a Twitter page dedicated to my battalion, and I take pictures of these guys when they're working. I'll throw the pictures up in there, talk about, hey, this is what's going on. And it's the little things that I can do for them to basically brag on them. It's like you brag about your kids all the time. I brag about my shift all the time. These guys are out there. They want to do the job. Nobody comes to work wanting to be a turd. That's one of the things that I've always said. Nobody comes to work and wants to do a bad job. They come to work and they want to do the best that they can do. And it's my responsibility. It's my job to give them the tools and give them the opportunity to do their job and step out of the way. And I these last 10 years of me being a battalion chief, I couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's not much we disagree on. We both, we both have the same values. We both run off the same principles, and that's the reason why we move about the country, teaching what we teach. Our values, are pretty much right in line with each other.
Yeah, I enjoy, when we go and we teach, we walk into a new department and we know nobody, and we go in there. And it's an automatic. It like clicks. It's an automatic brotherhood. I think within the first 5 minutes of walking into a firehouse, we're already busting balls with everybody, because that's the firehouse mentality. And those guys are there because they want you there, because they want you to teach them something, because they want to make sure that they hone their craft and they're the best that they can be for their organizations and for their communities. And walking in and it's a humbling experience. They're there. They're truly happy that you're there to teach them something. And like you said, RG, we walk away learning something from those guys. They may have a little technique or something that they use that we've never seen before. And I'm up front with them. I tell them right away, hey, I think that's a really good idea. I'm going to steal it and put my name on it. I'm just letting you know right now. And we'll put that in our program. But it's definitely a humbling experience of being able to being called upon to teach stuff that you have learned along the way. I think that's the highest praise that I could ever receive, is having somebody want me to teach them something. So I think that going from needing a mentor to being a mentor is when you have reached the pinnacle in the fire services, where you have people that are coming to you because they want you to teach them. And that rolls into your succession planning, which is a whole nother podcast of just making people prepared to take your job. So we're coming down to the wire, RJ. We got a couple of more minutes left. I want to give you the last word of some advice that you'd like to give any new officers that are out there that may find themselves a little overwhelmed, that would have the unfortunate not have the opportunity to go through an officer candidate school. They're basically going from backstep firefighter to riding the front seat with very little hands-on training. What's some of the advice that you can give these guys so they can survive their shifts and start making themselves better?
Well, first, Dave, I want to thank you for having me on again. I really do enjoy doing these things with you. It's fun. We bounce ideas off each other. When we come up with these topics, we generally start off with a topic with no script, and we go off of we feed off each other. So
me, I have never had a script in anything I've ever done.
Yeah, man, and that's what I like about these things, right? Because off the cuff, and sometimes I might swear by accident, or whatever, But I just want to thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. And as some parting advice for these new officers, man, it could be intimidating when you go into a firehouse as a new person to a firehouse that already has established shifts, established senior guys and girls, whatever, where you find yourself trying to make it with these groups. The best thing that you can do is to find a strong person and lean on them. I tend to do that everywhere I go. Again, I bounce around from different houses in the county. I try to find one of the strong persons in the shift, either the technician or the senior man, and lean on them. But not everybody is going to be one of those people that's able to step up and lead. But you have to remember, you are the leader. That's the reason why you got the job. That's the reason why you took the test and went through the process. You are a leader. So one of the things that they tested you on, and you have to remember this, one of the things they tested you on was being able to lead. So when these times come where you have that group that they don't know what they want to train on, or they don't know how to navigate the day without their normal boss being there, that's where you have to shine. And that's your time to step up and lead. And when you do step up and lead, they're watching. And that's where they are building their credibility with you. And when you walk out of that firehouse the next day, you're somewhere else for the next tour, and somebody else is in there. They're going to say, "Hey, man, that guy who worked with us last shift, he was pretty cool, man. He was fun. Had a good time with him. He steered us in the direction of training, and we had a great time. That's where you have to remember your role. So that's the only piece of advice I would say as a new boss. Is to remember that you are a leader. You don't have to walk in and be the dictator. You have to walk in and be a leader. And people are looking for you to be the leader, and they're wanting to see you in the leadership role. Don't be intimidated by it. Just step up and rise to the occasion. So that's the only piece of advice I would leave somebody that's fairly new.
So, and before we leave, if there's people out there that are listening to this that they want to get a hold of you in particular, or they want to, hire your training company to, teach a class, give a little plug of what kind of classes that you offer, and how can they get a hold of you to arrange for the boys to come out and train?
Oh, absolutely. We are on social media, Capital Fire Training. We do have, if you want to reach out to us to schedule a class or get information, admin@capitalfiretraining. Or you can go to our website and you can fill out an interest form, and it will come to us, and we can reach back out to you. We specialize in all kind of training, not just tactical stuff, engine, truck, rescue stuff, but we also do leadership stuff. We have a very, very great command program where we have guys like yourself, Sam, and then different things where we have leadership programs by different officers. Retired Captain Tony Chicarico, who retired out of Brooklyn. He does some leadership stuff for us. So we have a very, very well-rounded base of training that we deliver through our training company. So as always, I appreciate you giving me the plug, Dave. And look us up, Capital Fire Training. We also are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Very good. All right, RJ. Well, again, thanks for being on the show. Be safe, and I'll be seeing you real soon.
No problem, Dave. Thanks for having me.
See you. If you like this show or any other show, please leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast listening platform you're listening to. You can look for us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. If you'd like to contact us, please don't hesitate to drop us a note at sidealphaleadership@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.